Hello everyone, dear friends, welcome to my channel Venki History Hub. Friends, take a note of it that I have been changed the name of my channel, so that is Venki History Hub. Okay, for the more updates regarding the classes, uh, subscribe my channel and press on the bell icon. So by this time you might be understanding by looking at the channel. So History Hub. So I'm going to take classes about history that will be useful for UPSC, APPSC, TSPSC and other PSCs. So I'm going to give a detail about classes. Okay. So today we are going to discuss about Gurjara Pratiharas. So Gurjara Pratiharas, one of the North Indian or Northwest Indian rulers who ruled in and around Gujarat. Okay, so you can see on the screen a king holding sword and other is called as a Mihir Bhoja. He is one of the greatest ruler of Gurjara Pratihara. And beside we can see one temple, temple known as a Telika Mandir, Hindu temple dedicated to Shiva. So the temple architecture is like a northern style. You can see Nagara style of architecture. So it is basically rectangular shape. Normally the temples will be square shape, but it is in a rectangular shape. Okay, so without any delay, let's go into the discussion. This is about me. So coming to the first territorial expansion of Gurjara Pratiharas. So here we can see three colors of Indian map at the time. So this is the territorial expansion of Gurjara Pratiharas. This is the uh, so the three of them mix or fight for one region. You can see there. So region that is Kannaj. Kannaj was a very important place at that time because it is located in between the river Yamuna and Ganga, and it was also a fertile land. And before that, it was also capital of the previous king, that is Harshavardhana. So he ruled from Kannaj. So that is why the Kannaj was an important place, and it played a bone of contention among these three rulers. So these three rulers used to fight always for the Kannaj. So we can see in and around most of the place is occupied uh, Gurjara Pratiharas. So most of the time the Kannaj was occupied by Gurjara Pratiharas, and sometime the Palas and the Rashtrakutas from the south or Deccan. So they go again and again, go and annex the Kannaj and come back. So they were not able to stay there for a longer time. So when they come back, it is used to annex by the Gurjara Pratiharas. So like this, we'll see in detail. Okay, coming to the first one, that is the origin of Gurjara Pratiharas. So telling about the origin of Gurjara Pratiharas, it is always a debate among the historians. So how this Gurjara Pratiharas are originated? So there is no uh, particular source that says about these are uh, indigenous or foreign people. So they are not still confirmed it yet. So discussions are going on. So among the some scholars, they said the different theories uh, based on their origin. So some scholars how they define this Gurjara Pratiharas. So basically Gurjara Pratiharas said to be a foreign origin. So after the fall of the Gupta Empire, some of the middle in the northwest, some of the tribals invader flowed into the India. Like you can see some of the rulers, Hunas or Kushans. So this way the foreign rulers came to India. So it is said along with them, along with the Hunas and Kushans, the Gurjar Pratiharas also came to India and Indianized their culture. This is the one theory. So another one we can see that indigenous theory. So according to this theory, Gurjara Pratiharas were indigenous people. So Pratiharas were the people called, and Gurjara was region, land or region. Gurjara or Gurjara Desha, Gurjaratra. So these are the region. So people lived in a Gurjara or Gurjara Desha is known as a Pratiharas. So likewise, the Gurjara Pratiharas came to an existence. So other one we can see that they are also known they might be uh, known as a tribes. So indigenous the tribe in and around Rajasthan. So other one Agnikula family. So this is a theory, or this is a thing that forth by this Prithviraj also. So he says that according to him, Gurjara Pratiharas were Agnikula family. So in the during the fire sacrifice at Mount Abu, they were born. So he said this one. And these kings, who the Gurjara Pratiharas, they trace their descendant from Lakshmana. Lakshmana was brother of Lord Rama. So how they trace? The Lakshmana used to be doorkeeper to his brother Rama. The doorkeeper is known as a Pratihara. So likewise, they trace their origin from Lakshmana, that a mythological figure. Okay. So coming into the next one, we see the political history. The political history is very important to understand any kingdom or any empire. You need to have a control, or you need to have a thorough knowledge about the political history of the region. So have some knowledge about the political history of Gurjara Pratiharas. So coming to the first ruler, that is Gurjara Pratiharas was founded by Nagabhatta in 730. So before that we can see also some of the books, they say that Gurjara Pratiharas period is basically from 6th century to 11th century CE. So why they say that 6th century is during the period of 6th century, there is a king named Ramachandra. He used to be founder of the Gurjara Pratiharas, but after him there is no prominence, or there is no sources for the more. So from the Nagabhatta onwards, they gain political influence and the history begins. Okay. So now let us see about Nagabhatta. Nagabhatta is one of the first and foremost ruler of Gurjara Pratiharas, reigned between the 732 up to 56. So during this period, just his territory was a land, heartland of Jodhpur within the Rajasthan, a small principality. So when he started his kingdom, it was just a small principality. So his capital was at Ujjain or Avanti. His capital was that place. So coming to his role, Nagabhatta role is very important, not only from the perspective of Gurjara Pratiharas, but also from the Indian perspective. So because he was an important ruler who stopped the Arab invasion. During his period, there was Arab invasion led by Junaid and Ramin, are two of the governors of Sindh, belongs to Arab dynasty. So it is said that he stopped them successfully, not invading this Gurjara Pratiharas. So to be remembered, it has to be remembered. So he also fought with the Dantidurga, and Nagabhatta was defeated by Dantidurga. Dantidurga is basically a ruler of Rashtrakuta. He is also founder of the Rashtrakuta Empire. So in the first only, let us know that there is a conflict among this Rashtrakutas, Gurjara Pratiharas, and Palas. So this fight is known as a tripartite struggle. This fight is known as a tripartite struggle. This question is asked many times in exams. Be aware of this. It's known as a tripartite struggle. This one. So the struggle for Kannauj, to have a control over Kannauj. So this is known as a tripartite struggle. And by the time he was passed, so his empire consisted of mainly the part of Gujarat, the present Gujarat, and Malwa and Rajputana. This was the empire extended. So he was succeeded by Kakusta, or also he is known as a Kakuka, Kakusta or Kakuka in some of the books. He was his brother's son. He was Nagabhatta's brother's son, succeeded him. So after him, Devaraja he came to the throne, but there is not much important about these two kings. So didn't have any events in their lives. So after Devaraja, his son was succeeded by him. Devaraja was succeeded by his son, that is Vatsaraja. Vatsaraja is one of the important king of the Gurjara Pratiharas, ruled from 775 to up to 1805. So almost he ruled for 30 years. So during his period, his policy was like a expansion policy. So he annexed. His principle was during his predecessors. The region was in and around Avanti and Bundelkhand, this Gujarat region. So he tried to expand or annex the Kannauj, which was not part of these rulers. So Kannauj was basically ruled by Bandi rulers at that time. So he defeated them and he annexed Kannauj. Okay, this ambition of acquiring the Kannauj by Vatsaraja, this led to a conflict among these three rulers. That is Pala ruler Dharmapala, and Dhruva, the Rashtrakuta rulers. And among these three, the struggle began. So this is known as a tripartite struggle. So Vatsaraja was succeeded by his son Nagabhatta II. So basically we see that Vatsaraja waged a war against Dharmapala. So in that war he was able to defeat. In this war he was able to defeat Dharmapala. So whereas from behind the Rashtrakuta ruler defeated Vatsaraja. So basically how their fighting was, the Pratiharas were, Gurjara Pratiharas were little powerful. So they used to annex the territory and they go into conflict with the Palas. Now, in some or the other way, the Palas used to approach Rashtrakutas or to keep a full stop to the expansion of this Gujjar Pratiharas. This Rashtrakutas come into that conflict. So likewise, it was taking almost like this only. Every time the Gujjara Pratiharas used to fight with the Palas and defeat the Palas. So from behind, the Rashtrakutas comes and fight with Gujjara Pratiharas and defeat the Gujjara Pratiharas. This was the situation always whenever they fight. So coming to the Nagabhatta the second, Vatsaraja succeeded by Nagabhatta in his reign basically 1805 to 1833. So this is the time period. So like his son, he also started the policy of expansion. Policy of expansion means wants to acquire the territories. He wants to defeat the neighboring kings and want to have a rule over them. So basically, when the Vatsaraja fought with Rashtrakutas, so there was a limit that was kept by Rashtrakutas up to Rajputana. So the Pratiharas were not allowed to acquire the territory more than the Rajputana. So during the time of Nagabhatta, he started the different policy to expand his empire. So Nagabhatta is said to be defeated the rulers of Anartha, rulers Saidava, Vidarbha and Kalinga. So he is said to be defeated these all rulers, this Vidarbha. Okay. So at this time during his period, Dharmapala, a Pala king, said to be defeated Indrayudha. Indrayudha was ruler of Kannauj and made his brother ruler of Kannauj, that is Chakrayudha, made him as a ruler of Kannauj. So this act was angered to Nagabhatta. So what he has done, Nagabhatta went and occupied this Kannauj. He defeated Chakrayudha, the ruler of Kannauj, who was appointed or who was a nominee of Dharmapala, and he annexed Kannauj. Now Nagabhatta, what he has done, he has also expanded or annexed some of the territories of Palas. So up to Munger, it was in present day Bihar state. He was able to annex the Palas territory up to this Munger. So he defeated Dharmapala, as I said. So again Nagabhatta, behind him the Rashtrakutas comes and put a check. Okay, that Nagabhatta was defeated by Govinda III, the Rashtrakuta ruler. So it is very important to remember that he rebuilt the Somnath temple. So basically Somnath temple is destroyed many times and constructed by many kings in different periods. So during this period, in the beginning only the Arab invasion took place. Means it was not completely invaded. So they tried to invade. At that time, the Arabs demolished or destroyed the Somnath temple. So during the period of Nagabhatta, it is known that he rebuilt the Somnath temple. So during his period, the main center of Gujjara Pratiharas is little bit changed to Kannauj. So basically it was in the region and around Avanti, and now it is changed to Kannauj. Okay. So after Nagabhatta, we see that he was succeeded by Ramabhadra. So he ruled for a short period up to 1836, but he proved himself as an incapable ruler. So he could not rule for a long time. So after Ramabhadra, we see the next king, that is Mihir Bhoja. He is also known as a Bhoja or Mihir Bhoja. is a son and successor of Ramabhadra who succeeded him. So his period is even his period is also important for some reasons. So his period basically starting with the 1880 836 to 85. Okay, it's said he was very brave and powerful king in this period. Not in this period, ruling the in this Gurjara Pratihara whole empire is a powerful and brave king. And his reign is known as a glorious chapter in history of Gurjara Pratiharas. So glorious chapter means very calm and prosperity is their expansion. So every all the sides growth was there during his period. So, okay, he is also very kind, and he is said to build many temples and literary works during his period. Okay, during this period, so there was a more aggressive policy of like expansion or conquesting areas. Though he conquested some of the areas, like we can see the conquest of Bundelkhand. Basically it was ruled by Jayashakti, one of the ruler. So when he any invader conquested it, so Jayashakti accepted the suzerainty of this king Mihir Bhoja, that I will be under you. So like that, there was an agreement between the Bundelkhand ruler and the Mihir Bhoja. So conquest of Rajputana is one of the southern states. In south of them is one of the state. I think, sorry. Okay. Next we see conquest of Punjab and Western India. So Punjab was basically north to them. So in Punjab we can see a place known as a Karnal. Karnal is a place in Punjab. Some of the inscriptions are like a person who wrote history of Kashmir, that is Kalhana, in his work Rajatarangani. He says that Karnal, which was part of Punjab, was under the control of Mihir Bhoja. So another inscription, that is Paheva inscription, that also say that Karnal was under the control of Mihir Bhoja. Okay, then next coming to the conquest of Jhansi and Gwalior. You can say the Jhansi is middle of this present Uttar Pradesh state. So he was able to from the west to, you can see from the west coast to, he was able to have a control over the Jhansi and Gwalior in this place. Okay. Now coming with a war with the Rashtrakutas. It is important just to remember. Who they may ask who is the contemporary of Mihir Bhoja. So like we can see, when the war with Rashtrakuta took place, there was two rulers like Amogha and the Krishna II. So during this period, these two rulers were having some control over Kannauj. So where Mihir Bhoja defeated these rulers and annexed Kannauj, and he sent them up to the south of the Vindhyan ranges. So it sent back them up to the Deccan. That is, he expanded up to the river Narmada. Okay, another one, the Dhruva. Dhruva is on our next ruler. It is said that Dhruva II and one of the Samanta of Gujarat defeated Mihir Bhoja. This two ruler in combination defeated Mihir Bhoja and driven him out of that place in a battle. Okay. So finally, that we come with the war with the Palas. So there we see some of the war took place between Palas and the Gurjara Pratiharas. So is among the Pala dynasty, Devapala was contemporary of Mihir Bhoja. We had a fight with him. Okay, other one we can see that Narayana Pala, one of the ruler, he was defeated by Mihir Bhoja. So these are some of the conquest and works that done by Mihir Bhoja. So next ruler we see, that is Mahendra Pala. Mahendra Pala ruled from 885 to 910. That is the time period of Mahendra Pala. And during his period is extended. So whatever the expanded empires of Mihir Bhoja, he added little bit to that. Like how he extended his empire up to Magadha. Magadha is basically a present we can see some of the Magadha and part of North Bengal. So he annexed these two to his empire. So basically we see the expansion during this period, the whole territory or expansion of the Gurjara Pratiharas. We see their territorial expansion on the north, it was up to the Himalayas, and in the south we can see that is Vindhyan ranges or Vindhyan region, that way the river Narmada Tapti flows. And we see in the west that Arabian Sea, and in the east they were able to have a control over the eastern coast. Okay, after he passed away, so there was a conflict or known as a war of succession among his sons. So basically it happens in every dynasty after a king who has to succeed him. So likewise in Gujjara Pratiharas also there was a war of succession which paved a way. So because of this war of succession, it declined or it weakened the power of Gurjara Pratiharas. So it weakened the power of Gurjara Pratiharas. So basically after the war of succession, the next ruler we see that Bhoja the second. The second. Okay, Bhoja the second comes to the throne, and for a short period he ruled. That is from up to 13th he ruled, and he was death thrown by Mahipala. He was death thrown by Mahipala, and he came to the throne in 1913 and ruled for around up to 944. So he was succeeded Mahipala. So Mahipala is said to be defeated by Rashtrakuta ruler, that is Indra the third. And during the East period only, it marked the beginning of the decline of Gurjara Pratiharas. So his period is known for a declining of Gurjara Empire. Okay. Coming to this, the next one, Mahipala was succeeded by the Mahendra Pala the second. Mahipala was succeeded by Mahendra Pala second. Second, his time period basically 944 to up to 48. This is his time period. Just have a note of it. Mahendrapal. And after him, the other later rulers So there is no much important or evidences about these rulers. So after him, almost a century period is ruled by these rulers. Like we see, Devapala is he ruled for 948 to 954. Vinayakapala 54 to 55. Mahipala the second 55 to 56, and Vijayapala 956 to 960, and Rajapala 960 to 1018, and Trilochanapala up to 1018 to 27, and Yashpala is said to be the last ruler of Gurjara Pratiharas. He reigned from 1024 to 1036. In 1036, it is said to be that it came to an end to the Gurjara Pratiharas. Gurjara Pratiharas came to an end during this period. So after the political history, we see the administration of Gurjara Pratiharas. So how they administered. Like here, regarding the administration, the king was the supreme authority of this kingdom, and all the powers is vested in his hands. So basically, the Gurjara Pratihara rulers used to adopt titles like Parameshwara, wrote down Parameshwara, Maharajati Raja, Parambaitaka, etc. So these are the some of the titles they were assumed. So during this period, the king used to appoint Samantas. So he used to appoint some different Samantas in different regions. So in the return, what the Samantas have to do, that they have to give military aid to the king. So whenever the war took place with other external rulers, so the Samantas has to send their troops to fight against the external enemy. So like that, the work of Samantas was delegated, and this there is a different hierarchy like Samantas, Mahasamantas. They are also known as Mahasamantas. So during this Gurjara Pratiharas, we see that there is no reference to the Mantri Parishad. So basically, every kingdom used to have a Mantri Parishad. Like we can see many kingdoms having Mantri Parishads, and that powers are delegated by kings to the ministers in different way. So in the coming to the period of Gurjara Pratiharas, we see that there is no Mantri Parishad here. So it is said that there were 8 different kinds of officers who used to administer the kingdom. Okay, these 8 officers used to administer the kingdom. The first one we see Kottapala is a highest officer of the fort. His work is to take care of the fort and surrounding areas. The next ruler, that is the next officer, that is Tantrapala, is basically Tantrapala is a representative of a king in a Samanta state. Now how we have like a ambassador. If India is there, the Indian ambassador in USA or United Kingdom, he will be there. But the relationship is different from this to that. Okay, Samanta. At that time, the king representative will be in Samanta, and used to tell king whatever happenings in the Samanta society or Samanta kingdom. So his work is like that, like Tantrapala. Then we see that is next one Dandapashika. Dandapashika is said to be the highest officer of the police. So based on this one, we see that there was a system of police to see the law and order in the society. So then next we see Dandanayaka. Dandapala over, now Dandanayaka. Dandanayaka is his work is to take care of the Department of Military and Department of Justice. two departments are taken care by Dandanayaka. Okay, then next one we see Dutaka. Dutaka is kind of messenger. So his work is to whatever the message or whatever the information given by king to a particular person, he has to deliver that message. So this is the work of messenger. Okay, next one, that Bangika. So his officer who wrote order and charities and grants in the kingdom. So the other one, Venaharina, is a legal expert. So he used to give ad- advices to the king and other rulers about the legal activities. Okay, the last one, that is Baladikran, is known as a chief of army. So he used to take care of the army and whatever the problems of army and where to go, is like a chief of the army. Okay, that is Baladikran. Then next we see the that administration, how this unit of administration took place. So in this region, the provinces were called as a bhuktis. Bhuktis were known as a provinces. So bhukti is divided by different mandalas. Mandalas is like some kind of district we can say, kind of district administration. Then after that, after the mandalas, there will be cities and villages. So having two different kind of administration. So in the basically in the empire, the village was the lowest or basic unit of the administration. Okay, and here we see some of the elders of the village as a rulers, or we can see that Mahatar, the elders of the village, known as a Mahatar. So their work is to look after the administration of the village. So they have to administer the village and take care that whatever the necessary steps to have a peaceful administration. Okay, next coming to the Gramapati, is like a officer who is appointed. So it work is to advise the villagers administration, how the villagers administration should take place. So that person is a Gramapati. Then next coming to the city administration, as the village and city is divided, there is a city administration taken care by certain people. The people that what the taken care by is known as a council. City administration taken care by council. That council is basically known as a Gosasti, Panchakula, or Sunyavaka, and Uttarasabha. These are the council that used to take care of the city administration. There was not only one city, there will be many cities in the empire. So this council used to take care and administer the city. Okay, coming to the next one, that is social conditions of the Gujjara Pratiharas. During this period, how the social conditions were, we shall discuss now. So basically here we can see that caste system was prevalent, how the from the beginning ancient onwards, how the caste system was existence, like uh, four different kinds of people like Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishyas and Sudras. So same that caste system was existing. Okay, so here we can see in this kingdom the Brahmins were called Vipra. Brahmins were known as a Vipra or called as a Vipra. So among the Brahmins, the prominent members not a guru. You can say the Chaturveda and Bhutta. These two group of Brahmins were very prevalent. Okay, were more prominent and prevalent. And we see among the Vaishyas, there are two groups that were prominent. We can say that Kanchuka and Vakata. These are the two groups in the Vaishya within the Vaishya who were prominent. Okay, we see the next, that is Arab writer Ibat Kuratbad, what he says. So, Arab writer, according to him, in India or in Gurjara Pratiharas, there existed a seven caste. According to him, there were seven caste. We can see seven caste are Savakufriya. Savakufriya is one of the caste according to the Ibn Kuturbad. So from this Savakufriya caste only, the king was selected. And like we can see, mostly the king was used to selected from the Kshatriya. From the Kshatriya clan, the king used to be selected like that. So according to him, from the Savakufriya caste, the king used to elect it. And according to him, Kataria is known to Kshatriyas. Kataria is known for Kshatriyas. Then Brahmins, next, that is Brahmins as a Brahmins only. And coming to the Sudarya means Shudras. Sudarya means Shudras in a Gurjara Pratihara empire. Then coming to the Bandaliya and Libla and finally Sundalia. These were the seven castes that existed in Gurjara Pratiharas according to the Arab writer Ibat Kuturbad. So we see the other person also who gave seven different classes of society in the ancient period, that is Megasthenes. Megasthenes gives seven different societies in India. So philosophers, teachers, Brahmins. So like that, he gives seven classes of Indian society. Remember this one. Okay. So social conditions. Now basically, Brahmins were they did not take wine. Means they were away from intoxicants thing. Okay, and even the meat, they did not take meat and all. And they used to marry to their sons the Kshatriya girls. So from Kshatriya, the little lower than the Brahmanas, so they used to get married Kshatriya girls to their sons. Coming to the Sudras basically from the beginning they were like a Chandalas, doing scavenging work, all those things. But in period of Gurjara Pratiharas, we see the work of Sudras was farming and cattle rearing. So little bit the Sudras work is developed. So they were among the fourth class. Okay. So here we see that Vaishyas said to be serving the other two classes. So here the Vaishyas used to do the work of Sudras, and even the Sudras used to do the work of Vaishyas. So they are like changing their work, their profession. So here we can see that many Hindus were converting to Islam. So basically Hindu, that time Arabs invasion took place. So though Arabs did not invade India, the people were prevalent, and in Islam, Muslim people used to come to India, so like traders and other activities. So there was a conversion taking place to Islam, and there was also system of purification of Hindus, that whoever converted to the other religion, like we can see Buddhism or Jainism or in Islam, they had a chance of reconverting to Hinduism. That is known as a purification of Hindus. Here we see other one, intercaste marriages were prevalent. So intercaste marriage, for example, we can take that Rajashekara, one of the famous court poet of Mahendrapala, or is confusion about court poet of Mahendrapala or Mihir Bhoja, and someday that is also court poet of Mahipala. So mostly believing is a court poet of Mahendrapala. Okay, it is said that Rajashekara, a scholar, poet, well versed in learning, has married a Kshatriya girl. So Kshatriya girl named Avanti Sundari. So he married her. Then we little bit to know about Rajashekara. Rajashekara is a good author, and he has written some of the works. We can see some of the work of his, that is, I did not mention here, just to see that Balabharata is one of the work, can write it down. Balabharata is one of the work by this Rajashekara. Balabharata, Bala Ramayana, Kavya Mimisa, Karpura Manjari, and Vidasala Banjika. Vidasala Banjika. These are the some of the work written by Rajashekar. So coming to the other one, here basically king used to follow not only king, the rich people used to follow the policy of polygamy, that they can marry any wives, any number of wives that they want. So they followed the policy of polygamy, and other people they used to have only one wife, so used to get one marriage, that's it. So here see that sati was prevalent here. After intercaste marriage, sati was prevalent, and sati at this time it was the choice for a woman whether she has to commit sati or not. So it was prevalent, but it was left to the women to do or not. You see the next one, that there was no parda system among the women. Parda system was not in existence, and the work of women, at that time women used to do what work? They basically they won't go for a war, all those things. So they used to be at palace and taking care of the children. So they had a chance of learning music, like a dancing, like a painting. So they had at palace, they used to do all these things: music, dancing, and painting. And women also fond of ornaments. It's happening in every kingdom that women were fond of ornaments. Okay, so according to Arab traveler, that is Sulaiman, said that here in India, or in Gurjara Pratihara's reign, there was a soft silk which is prevalent. Okay, and this is silk so delicate that the clothes made of the silk is to even pass through a ring, that we have a finger ring. The clothes used to be passed from that ring. So that much soft and delicate about that cloth. Okay, coming to the some of the economic activities of Gurjara Pratiharas. So here economy, we see that economy was largely based on agriculture. We see in the beginning map, I have shown you in the map, the Kannaj, which was a fertile land between the river Yamuna and Ganga. About this there was a conflict among the three. So that we can take base, and we can think that it was a very fertile land, and agriculture was the uh, basic income of the empire. So mostly in kingdom was based on agriculture. So we see some of the expenditures that most of the expenditures were done mainly on a royal household. This is about the that nobles, kings, whoever there, for their household there was much expenditure. And the next one was the army, to take care of the army or to take salaries or other weapons, all these, for all these things uh, the army also had a lot of expenditure. And these people had a trade with the Arab people. So that was mainly in the horse. So there was a horse trade prevalent. So see some of the religious things that were what was happening like. So here, this period saw the progress of Brahmanical religion. Brahmanical religion means focusing on Hinduism mostly. So there was also other religions like Buddhism was there. Buddhism was slowly declining, and Jainism also was declining. Both this both these religions were declining, and the rise of Islam is taking place. Not much, but the conversion to Islam was taking place. Okay, but the Brahmanical religion was very prevalent, and worship of Vishnu, Shiva, and Sukta was taking place. So mostly the King Shiva, God Shiva is worshipped, and different names like Indra. We can see God of Shiva is Indra, Shankar, Pashupati, Yoga Swami. Yoga Swami used to sit in a yogic posture and meditate. Na? So that is one. Shambhu. So these are the different names that for Shiva. And coming to the kings like Vatsaraja, Mahendrapala, and Trilochanapala, these three kings were said to be worshippers of Shiva. Okay, these three kings were worshippers of Shiva, and Mihir is said to be the worshipper of Vishnu, I think. So within the Shiva temple, we see within the there is a temple dedicated to one god. There is like that, but here in the region of, or in the kingdom of Gujjara Pratiharas, we see that within the Shiva temple there is also statues of Vishnu. Vishnu statue was there. Brahma statue was there, and a Surya statue was there, and even some of the goddess like we can see Durga, Chamundi, Bhagavati, Kali. These statues were there within the one temple, that is Shiva temple. We can see. So as I said, the Buddhism and Jainism was declining in this period. Coming to the last one, that is art and architecture of Gurjara Pratiharas. So Gujjara Pratiharas were known as a great pattern for art and architecture, even the literature. And in this way, the Mihir Bhoja was the most outstanding figure who contributed a lot to the art and architecture. So some of the notable we see some of the notable architecture that we come across. So some of the notable sculptures of this period. One is the best is a Vishwarupa form. So here Vishnu taking the form of Vishwarupa, so having many heads like whatever the gods, Krishna, Vinayaka, so Vishnu, so all these forms. So we can see this is known as a Vishwarupa uh, form of Vishnu. And other sculpture is a sculptures of marriage of Shiva and Parvati. So this form we can see at Kannaj. mainly on the walls of temple walls of Oshain, Abaneri and Kota. So at these places we can see this some of the very fine art. So this is a female figure of Surasundari, namely exhibited in Gwalior Museum. This is there in Gwalior Museum, and this is the one of the fine and charming sculptures of Gurjara Pratyaharas. Okay, so here we can see this is the statue that is there, and we can see here that is the temple Telika Mandir, known as it is in Gwalior. So this temple is in a rectangular shape. It's not in a square. Basically, temples are square shaped, but this is the rectangular shape, and which with the Nagara style of architecture. So we see some of the temple, that is Gateshwara temple complex. So by this name, Telika means some of the in Hindi word like that. I don't think it's something regarding related to Islam. It's a Hindu temple. Okay, it is a Hindu temple dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, and Matrikas. It is in Gwalior, today's MP, that is Madhya Pradesh. Okay, and the next one, Viti Govanteshwara temple complex. So here we can see 2-3 temples. There are like 1, 2, 3. It's a temple complex. It is in a Baroli, in a place called Baroli. Then we see that one of the temple, that is Ambika Mata temple. This is Ambika Mata temple. These are the temples built by Gurjara Pratiharas. Okay, these are temples built by Gurjara Pratiharas. Ambika temple, it is there at the Jagat. It is there at the Jagat. Then with this we come to an end to this session. To have the Gurjara Pratihara Empire is very important north or northwestern empire, because it proved mainly it was important because it stopped the Arab invasion. That is the one. And there, so comparing to the Rashtrakutas Palas, the Gurjara Pratiharas were very prominent, very important, because they stopped the invasion of Arabs. Okay, for that. And there was also, it was soon after the Gupta, after the Harsha Empire declined, it took rise. So it took a form, and it is one of the most powerful Hindu empire after the Harsha. So one of the important Hindu kingdom. Okay, and we can see some of the very built or architecture works of Gurjara Pratiharas. So with this we come to an end. Dear friends, for more class regarding the history, please subscribe my channel, that is Venki History Hub, and to have a regular notification, press on the bell icon. Thank you so much.